So you should be able to see my screen, and I really want to tell you a little bit about me first, just so you can get a sense of what it is that I do and also where I'm coming from. So, starting off, um, my background is, first of all, I'm the CEO of LearnCube. We are the only virtual classroom software that is made exclusively for language teachers. I speak with lots of language teachers and lots of organizations like online schools and online language companies because those are our customers. And so I learn a lot about what's happening in the market and how these organizations are thinking about AI. But secondly, and probably more importantly, I spend a lot of time talking with folks about what they're thinking of doing with AI and what they think for the future. And that's through a number of different vehicles. The first one being I co authored a book called LangTech, and it's a book about exploring how technology is reshaping language learning and teaching. And since then, I've spoken with more language leaders to better understand AI's impact through a couple of other resources. One, and the most important one, was Langtick in the AI Era. It's a white paper. And I was speaking with leaders from Babbel, from Duolingo, from Rosetta Stone, from a lot of these really iconic companies. And so this is the background that I'm coming from. And I really hope that this is going to be valuable to you. And today I really just want to share what I've learned. So why don't we start off with AI accelerating? And who here is really excited about this acceleration? I know for myself, I'm sure that many of you feel the same way, that maybe we wish it didn't make quite the biggest splash that it feels like it's making. So before we kind of move forward, can we even just ask, I'm going to put a poll up, but explore what your reaction is around AI's impact on language teaching. So I'm just going to be taking a few moments here and seeing what you come up with. It's great to see what's coming through. So just giving you a couple of moments. Wow, the numbers are staggering. The cool thing is that I'm seeing really people are far more excited than they are skeptical, which is, I think, where we want to be. And we're also seeing a number of people still quite curious, but quite uncertain. And maybe we're going to be neck and neck. And I actually think that's where we're going to fit. Half of us are very excited, and half of us are uncertain to skeptical. And to be honest, I've really felt the same way. That I've wavered between being extremely excited to sometimes quite skeptical about AI's value in language education. But the problem is that AI isn't just gradually ticking along. If it was, then we could all just gradually make these changes and everything would be fine in terms of that slow adaptation. But AI isn't creeping along; it is absolutely sprinting. And there's been so many examples of that. And I gave an example of my own story, but I'm sure you're feeling that same experience. So let's go on to understand, okay, now that we've got all of this uncertainty and this acceleration, what do we do about it? So let's put that on the screen. I think you should be able to see it. That we do have that 50-50, more or less, excited versus skeptical. But let's have a think about, okay, what does this actually mean for us then? And what can we do about it? So my prediction really is, well, actually, I thought a lot about, hey, can I predict the future? Maybe that's what I really need to do as a language leader. I run this language virtual classroom business, but it's so predictable, and it's going to be so hard for us to work out what to do about it. So I asked around, and one of my friends actually gave me probably the best advice I've had so far, which was, her name is Shure Sales, and she's the AI lead at the LCC, a fantastic organization. And her response was, look, it's really a fool's errand to try and predict the future. AI is just moving too fast. You'll never get the timing right. It's much better just to assume that whatever your wildest imaginations are, you'll be able to achieve that, or it's going to be able to achieve that in whether it be 2, 5, or 10 years, but it's likely to achieve that. And then work back from that. And so that's my kind of principle now, really, is I'm thinking about what I would like that experience to be, what AI could do, and then what are the experiences I could make from that. And then I'm just working back, and I'm not worried about timing. And I think that for me feels very true and a much better approach than trying to get timing right. Maybe doing too much, doing too little, just assuming it's going to do everything you can imagine, and then working back from that. But then I was thinking of you in the audience today. Many of you are language teachers. What's the best analogy for you thinking about AI? And so I'm going to pass on what I feel is the best approach. And it's really that AI is kind of like a bicycle. It can take you wherever you want it to go, right? And you don't need roads. You can go up hills, you can go off road, you can go down hills. Um, but, and I really feel like AI is following that similar trajectory. It'll take you wherever you want to go. If you want it to do it, to use AI for curriculum development, it can help you get there. If you're wanting advice for diverse students, it can help you do that. It can do your admin, analysis, anything you might need. AI is going to be able to help you with this. But the crazy thing is, unlike a push bike that still relies on manual effort, a push bike that you still have to push up hills, and a push bike that you need great skill to be able to navigate your way on a dirt bike. With AI, you're just going to need to steer it in the right direction, because every month, but every 6 months at least, it's getting better. And it's getting more futuristic, more sophisticated, more intelligent, faster, cheaper. Everything about it is improving. And that just opens up some fantastic new opportunities. And that's kind of what the rest of this talk is about. It's about looking at 10 possible scenarios, 10 evolutions of language education, and helps you think about them, prepare for them, so that there aren't these big surprises and these big unknowns. I'm going to start with the simple one, and probably the one that I think is of most interest to you, or at least many of you, at least half of you, will be kind of hoping for. Let's start off with the status quo. This is the one that's easy for us, right? This is the one where a group of 6 to 30 odd students are going to come into your classroom. They're going to sit down, and they're all going to have a physical textbook, and you're going to be going through piece by piece and working through this with your classmates. And in terms of how likely this is, I feel it really depends where you teach. I was talking to a friend, and she was actually teacher training in Tunisia, and that experience is going to be totally different to those that are teaching in, say, a place like Austria. So the way I would kind of define it is, if you're working in a wealthy country, one that has good internet connections and every student has a device, or we've got a future where every student has a device, I kind of see the status quo as a very unlikely scenario, because students, teachers, all of us, we're all embracing these AI-powered tools for everyday life. And I just feel that students are going to expect these adaptive, personalized, seamless experiences. And also that sense of instant feedback. I just think they're going to be more and more ingrained, and there's going to be more pull from students for us to go down that direction. And those that don't offer it, I think, will find themselves in quite a difficult position if that becomes the expectation. And remember, in 5 to 10 years, these tools are just going to be so useful. It's going to be hard to ignore them. It's going to be hard to ignore them as a student, a teacher, a school administrator, and governments themselves. They're going to really struggle to kind of put the brakes on this. However, I would like to bring some reality to the room for many language teachers around the world that might be working in developing countries where the infrastructure just is not there now and is going to take a really long time to get there. If you're working in a place like Tunisia, where there might be 60 students in a classroom, There's no internet at school. Most students don't have a device. This kind of AI future is going to take a lot longer to get to. But either way, I really want to encourage you to stay open to what AI is going to enable, because there are opportunities that are available to all of us, because we can also teach online. So the next scenario I want to talk about is the one that I think most language teachers get most scared about. And this is where AI teachers become almost indistinguishable from human teachers, where these teachers can be projected into a physical classroom or they are embedded into an online classroom, and they help basically do everything that a teacher does now. In fact, in this scenario, you could imagine there not even be any need for teachers. And that's what, again, makes us kind of feel a bit of fear. What if these teachers can provide these entirely personalized experiences, but without human teachers? And here's my take on this. And I think it's going to seem shocking to you, but I actually think it's quite likely that AI is going to be able to outperform a human teacher in almost every teaching skill in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's the kind of scary aspect, right? Is I would actually be surprised in the way that AI is tracking that it won't be better at most things that are not all things, but most things that say 80% of teachers can do when it comes to teaching, explaining, grading, reporting, these kinds of activities. I mean, just look at how far things have come in just a few years. The cost of AI tokens is reduced by 150 times between early 2023 and mid 2024. That just means it's a lot cheaper now. And it's on that trajectory to get much cheaper, which means it's more available and which means that things can get better and better. So it's not crazy to me that in 10 years, AI isn't 100 times smarter than a human, the average human being. It isn't perfectly trained on the CFR. It isn't excellent at conversation skills. And it's not 1,000 times cheaper to run. But wait, it still won't change one simple fact. And this is the fact, this one truth I think is really important for you as physical language teachers. People don't treat AI the way that they do humans, right? They generally treat them worse, right? This idea of how we act online is just really different to how we treat humans when we're face to face online or face to face in person. We have much higher expectations on machines, and we value them a lot less than a human teacher. And that impacts so many aspects about the amount of trust we put in human teachers, and also the amount of trust that we put into the actual program and course that we're buying into. And this is one of the core reasons why I think that human teachers will remain at the heart of language learning. And human teachers really bring out the best in their learners. And that's the fundamental. And that's why I wholeheartedly believe in this vision where human teachers working alongside AI are really the best opportunity for us to help our learners get new opportunities and learn another language. And I'm not alone in this, right? Over the past 3 years, I've spoken with dozens and dozens of language leaders, and almost without exception, they agree that humans remain at the heart of the language learning journey. And so my guess is, look, we're going to fit somewhere in between these two extremes of the status quo and AI is doing everything in the classroom. And so I want to spend the next part of our time together to look at some of these other scenarios that I feel are probably a little more plausible as well. But let's just think of them as thought experiments. They're not predictions, they're just thought experiments that help us prepare and help us understand what we might need to do to prepare ourselves for any eventuality, because that's empowering and that gives us the autonomy and the vision that we'll all need to feel really positive about language teaching into the future. So let's start off with one that I think is possibly one of the more likely aspects, since language teachers have actually really embraced generative AI, particularly for things like content creation. So imagine you start work in the morning and the AI teaching assistant has been busy, right? It's been busy for you because everything is prepared for you. You've got your lesson plans, you've got your quizzes, your personalized assignments, and even reporting cards. They're all going to be generated by AI for you. So there's not going to be this late nights, grading or doing reports. Instead, you're going to be spending just a small fraction curating what the AI has actually created for you. And I kind of even think that we're already moving towards this with prompt generation. I think prompt engineering, sorry, is one of those things that is really important right now. And I would certainly encourage people to still improve their skills in using the AI that we have now. But this future kind of suggests that we're going to need less and less prompt engineering, and we're going to have more and more of the content curriculum possibly generated for us as teachers to then either evaluate and make decisions on. But I guess that's the big question with this kind of future where this teacher assistant is developing this curriculum for you, is deciding which content should be given to which student and really personalizing that experience, because someone has to make that decision. And it could be human teachers, it could be the platforms themselves that offer this kind of curriculum. It could even be the learners deciding on what they want to learn. So there's lots of stakeholders. And so with each of these scenarios, there's these like, hey, that seems really realistic. But hey, there's also these bigger questions that we need to assess. This fourth scenario I really like because it helps the student feel really empowered and really gives the student what I think a lot of students feel that they would like. And so imagine yourself going into your classroom, and instead of you setting up the content and setting up the class, every student already is busy, heads down, doing their work. They've got their own personalized assignments. They're getting their own personalized feedback, all from their own, let's call it AI tutor or learning guide. And this learning guide is able to answer any of their questions instantly. And at the same time as all these students are busy doing their work, you have a visual dashboard where you can see what your students are doing, and it's incredibly intuitive and it helps you know where to spend your attention. This would give you that opportunity to really free you up to really go, okay, this is where I need to be in the room. This is where these are the students that need my help. And that gives you, a lot of energy and a lot of impact within the class too. But just like I said, there's always this other trade-off, there is a possibility with this kind of future that students start becoming very insular. They stop really engaging with other students because they rely on their guide. They stop really engaging with the teacher because they kind of rely on their guide, which might feel more secure, particularly for those that are a bit more shy. So I feel like this is kind of one trade-off, but I think also it is something that the leaders of organizations are going to have a really big impact on. And I feel like this is where it could really be a bit of a dream or a bit of a nightmare scenario, depending on the leadership of the organization that sets up these classrooms, right? So if your school leadership is really supportive of language teachers, provides the training, helps language teachers feel really part of this, uses the data to help teachers do a better job, then I think this could be a really positive scenario and a really empowering scenario for language teachers. But the side that we really want to protect against is where this is a system that becomes much more a sense of control of teachers. I think that would be a really negative scenario that we'd want to protect against, where teachers then don't feel valued, or the data is just kind of poorly provided, that it just becomes a data overload, in which case the implementation would be really poor. So that's why a lot of these things can look amazing as long as they're done well. But we always have to remember that there are sort of these gray areas where we want to make sure that the implementation is as good as possible, particularly remember for the language learner. That's the person that we're really trying to support. Number 5 is about automating admin. I mean, wouldn't we love just to not have to do all of the other stuff that turns around teaching? That's certainly one of the most common phrases I hear from language teachers, that they would love not to have to do the paperwork, do the attendance, do these reports. And in these scenarios where AI can just quietly do the admin, that again gives you the energy and possibly a much more energized lifestyle as well, where you gain hours so that you can just focus on what you need to do in the classroom. You can upskill yourself on what you need to be able to provide the best teaching experience for a really diverse number of students. Um, with this kind of scenario as well, you can imagine that AI doesn't forget anything, right? It can really provide this pattern recognition over a really long period. And that could be really rich and meaningful for teachers, for students, and the organizations that are really trying to ensure that they have the highest quality language teaching. But with all these big upsides, we can also imagine some challenges, right? You know, uh, systems, like any systems, can make mistakes, or the edge cases can maybe misrepresent results. So we want to make sure that's not only just accurate, but it also aligns with what we expect the AI to be reporting on and the conclusions that that AI reports on. There's also a scenario where teachers miss out on a really important reflective practice. There's a reflective practice in writing reports and doing a lot of some of these admin functions, and perhaps we're missing out on that. Um, I think there's also an aspect of teachers also being willing and able to let go. I think I hear a lot of enthusiasm about letting go of a lot of the administrative tasks and even the content creation tasks. But when actually provided the opportunity to, some teachers go, yeah, but it's not perfect. It's not quite right. And that level of holding on to the perfection can really hold back this process and really keeps, and possibly keeps, in my view, um, teachers in a place where they're spending a lot more time than I would say that they need to on admin and repetitive lower value tasks. So interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Uh, Next, let's look at teacher twins. So teacher twins are this idea of you're wrapping up the class, um, but and really you're on call all night, right? You're on call for whatever students may want to ask of you at any time of the night. Now it sounds like a horror system until I tell you that this isn't you. This is the virtual you, right? And your students are able to access a digital twin of yourself where they can click a button, ask teacher, hear your familiar voice, possibly even see your likeness, see a video of you in almost a photorealistic and photo from a video perspective as well. That photorealistic version of you where they can ask you questions and really continue practicing possibly. I mean, this is pretty interesting because you're still very much at the heart of the teaching experience, but you're not having to be there 24/7. Student gets the 24/7 aspects, but you don't have to make up that time. There's going to be fewer distractions within the classroom because a lot of these questions that maybe students are shy about, and actually I think this is really good for shy students, and you can kind of see that from the benefits of some of the AI tutors, is that where there are shy students, this no judgment opportunity to practice or ask questions can be really valuable. So some big benefits, but some pretty curly questions, right? So one of those, as I mentioned, I really feel that humans treat AI and digital versions of yourself probably quite differently from how they would treat the real you. How do we feel about that? If somebody's rude to your digital view, does that impact you? I think that's quite an interesting scenario here. But I think one of the more tricky ones for me, and I think ones that would be really important for teachers, is do those teachers get paid for having their for the time that students spend with their digital likeness, their digital twin? That's kind of an interesting question that I don't know the answers, and I guess we'll be able to find out. But technologically or technically, the ability to provide digital twins doesn't seem very far away at all. Like we already have lots and lots of tools available for us to mimic our voice, and starting to mimic our likeness through even as much as a single photo. We can have avatars that look and sound like us. It's a pretty interesting reality that we're moving into. So, how are we going to deal with these interesting questions? My next scenario is around XR language experiences. And this is really just about two that you might be familiar with, which is augmented reality, which is usually where you can, maybe it's a glass, but you can still see everything. You can still engage with the real world. And then virtual reality, which is kind of like what you're seeing on the screen here, where your reality is completely determined by what's in the device in the headset. And then this scenario is quite a fun one because you can imagine yourself putting on your own headset. Maybe you're in a busy English pub. You can hear the drinks clinking, the sounds of conversation, and you can look over and you can actually watch your student engage with a bar attendant to order something, and really see what's going on there. You might be able to make yourself visible or invisible to your student. But also this AI that's going in the background can be taking notes on everything that takes part of that conversation. It can look at common mistakes, common hesitations, issues, all of those sorts of things, and report back to you. And I think this is really interesting, and there's some really big upsides, right? So that immersion aspect and experience could be really rewarding, really engaging for students. It could really help with improvement of retention, in terms of what they learn. We know that if people are really engaged, and particularly if they're emotionally engaged and feel like experientially engaged, that they'll be more likely to remember something. Maybe this could be a really useful tool for students and teachers. It's also safe and inexpensive, right? Everything's tracked, so it's safe. And it's also a lot less expensive than, for example, jumping on a plane and going across the world. Now, again, those in-person experiences are extremely rewarding, but not just because of the education. But let's talk about some of the problems with something like this. Big problem is the money to actually invest in these kinds of resources. How likely is it that schools are willing to put the resources aside to make these investments for the headsets for how many? All of their students, just a few of their students, all of their teachers, just a few of their teachers. If we're relying on students to have these, how affordable are those and how accessible are those? I'm still a little bit on the wavering on the likelihood of every person, just like we have a smartphone, having a VR headset. I still don't see it right now, and I think a lot of things would need to change for this to be mass adopted, but it's still possible. And I think the other question is, whether this is something that becomes part of every school, or is it really just a tool? And also, how do we know how useful it is as a tool? Questions and some real upsides, worth exploring and worth preparing and investigating yourselves. Transforming group classes. Like, so much of language teaching is done in groups. And most of that online, I really feel that there's some issues with the way that online classes are generally dealt with online. Feels so much more likely to be a lecture or a take turns and a merry-go-round than something that's really dynamic and kind of mimics that dynamism that you see in a physical classroom when you do group work. But even in physical classrooms, instead of this teacher having to facilitate and manage and orchestrate and even come up with this group learning and experience, what if the AI was in charge of managing the students? So even if they were quite large group sizes, the classes could be automatically split into groups, and they could be split up based on maybe how well people get on, maybe their levels, maybe something else. But the AI would maybe be able to optimize these group differences, would be able to facilitate peer-to-peer learning in a much more interactive way, because it can basically be everywhere simultaneously. One group can be doing advanced discussion because they have higher levels. Another could be tackling grammar. Another one could be tackling, vocab from real world video. It really could be as diverse as that. And you as a teacher would be able to move between groups, and maybe you're nudged this way and that by the AI so that you can make the most of your time with the class. And your job, again, is not necessarily to control in this circumstance, but to coach, to challenge, maybe to inspire and motivate people and really get people that otherwise would struggle to start the conversation to start that conversation. That's again where humans are so fantastic in the language education experience. AI could see who's contributing, who's struggling, who's thriving, give you that feedback as a teacher to know what's happening and where to focus. And I just think that this could all be done in a really fascinating, integrated, and dynamic way. And it would make group classes, in my view, a lot more effective if it was done really well. But there's some big ifs. So, can we afford this kind of technology? Could be one aspect. Is this the time that we are able to move away from everybody has the same textbook and everyone's going at the same pace? Who shapes this content? Again, going back to those decision makers, is it the teachers? Is it the schools? Is it the platforms? Is it AI itself? Like, who is making the decision about what these different groups are doing? And then also the amount of data that maybe goes into that AI to be able to make this happen, and whether there are some issues with, what if somebody's having a private conversation and AI is listening? Is that okay? So lots of questions, and that's the wonderful thing about the future is we'll, I'm sure, have time to figure these all out. Number nine, last two. This one is a fun one. I remember hearing it from when I was doing the LangTech book. This was a really cool idea of this omnipresent language assistant. So, what if your students didn't even need to turn up to class anymore to learn? What if learning was just embedded, integrated into your life? So that just quietly happened throughout the day, just an ambient, effortless way of learning, just like, checking the time. Um, in this kind of scenario, you can imagine, maybe you're texting a friend and the assistant would, subtly nudge you into using different or better or more natural language. Maybe, and again, I wouldn't discount this idea of fully personalized AI generated videos happen in the future. If that's the case that we're moving into, is it going to be nudging us into even language level specific um, TV series that are going to be perfect for your level and really help you learn? That would be a fun idea, right? And it could be a way where it's listening to your interactions all day while you're at work, and then it just gives you feedback on what it's listened to and what it could provide to you to improve things. I mean, these are all kind of feel like really far off, but there's nothing really technically about these things that are too difficult for us to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years. We're already seeing it with tools like Fluently, which is a new Y Combinator startup, which is when you do a work call, it's taking notes, but also then providing language feedback to you afterwards. I think Toucan was another tool that was embedded in your web browsing experience and would kind of embed the language learning as you were searching and looking around. Again, the technology seems there, but whether or not and this is kind of, I guess, the big downside of these omnipresent language assistants, how do we know what they're really listening to? And are we willing to kind of pay the price, possibly in terms of our data and privacy, to be able to achieve and access these new experiences? I'm really fascinated to find out. Now, finally, for me, is are we going to be elite teachers or elite mentors? And I kind of see a lot of teachers spending a lot of time putting their energy into building lesson plans, or they're getting stuck into, in my view, quite low value tasks like managing attendance, writing reports. And AI can do so many of these things really well and possibly better than most language teachers. And certainly when you're talking about scale in terms of consistency, it does it really well. And in my view, teachers are just not content delivery machines. And I'm sure many of you will agree with me that you are so much more than that and have so much more to offer that an AI can't. And in this world of AI tutors that are capable of auto marking, of creating a great content, of being great explainers, you know, it's not gonna this new future is not gonna be rewarding the teachers that can explain grammar in the fastest or best way, right? We can leave AI to do a lot of these things, and instead, let's get humans to do what AI can't and is unlikely to be able to do really well, which is really spot these subtle changes in mood or confidence with our students, this ability to build trust and bring out the best in learners, and remembering again that learners will respond, in my view, so much better to something that a human says than compared to an AI says. Not in all circumstances, but in terms of what that connection to the language, I really feel is best coming from a human teacher. And also, human teachers are just the best motivators. And language learning is a long, long journey, and we need a lot of motivation to get us through all the ups and downs. So I'm going to pop another poll on the side here. So in this world, though, where AI is kind of able to do so much, what is the most irreplaceable skill? I'm just going to put this poll up on the screen and pop in your answers there. Oh, sorry, just the next one. Oh, this one was actually, sorry, can I pop that, change this one? Let's go to, there we go. Okay, up we go. I think from what I'm seeing in the poll, many of you are agreeing with me. You know, you are the best at inspiring and motivating learners. You are fantastic at creating human connection and trust. Um, yeah, I think we're really seeing this play out on stage, that there's so much that you can offer, and so much of it is that human connection and trust. And that is not going to be going away, and that's what makes you so irreplaceable. If you've got other skills, feel free to put them in the chat, and not just what you think is your skill, but why you think it's such an irreplaceable skill in this AI future. I'll be really fascinated. Great. So we're almost there. I'm really excited about the future of language education with all of these new capabilities that AI is enabling. I'm going to end this poll now, and then we're going to get close to our Q&A. So let me share the results, and I'll move into our final slides. So think a little bit now about what excites you the most about AI's potential in language education. This is kind of the last question. I think it's best if you pop this in the chat. I really want you to leave this session feeling better prepared. I want you to have more confidence, and I want you to feel really excited about the future, because I think there is a lot to be excited about. And if we're engaged with it, we can also have a really big influence over it. So pop that into the chat now. And let me just finish up with my take on where things are going. So we've explored 10 possible futures about how AI might transform language education. We don't know what's going to happen. I've definitely made that clear on my side. I'm not willing to put my money on any one scenario happening. But what I can tell you, and what I'm very clear on, is that AI is getting faster, it is getting better, and it is getting much cheaper, and that makes it far more available. And I know that AI is accelerating, and it's accelerating so fast that in 5 to 10 years, I'm betting at least that AI is going to be able to match or exceed our wildest expectations. And the reason that this is so important is it impacts you, and it's going to provide opportunities and challenges that you need to be prepared for. And so I'll give you a rough idea of where I'll place my bets. But again, remember, I cannot predict the future, but I can prepare for any eventuality. So my take is this: is that students are always going to need teachers. They're going to need them to build confidence. As you've said here, they're going to need them to build that connection and trust that helps them going when the times are tough, and stay motivated over the long term. And they're going to need human teachers to get to that level of fluency that's going to be really valued in society. Not that they can just speak accurately, but they can really speak with confidence and build relationships with another language. I don't believe that human teachers are going to be replaced at all by AI. And when I say by at all, your roles are likely to change, but they're going to be amplified by it. AI is very likely to take care of most of this repetitive um, work that you do. It is going to be helping you spend more time on what really matters, on connection, on coaching, on helping people get through problems and get through problems, whether it be a motivational problem or whether it be some kind of explanation that they're really struggling with. And just like the Tour de France cycling race, some teachers are really going to be racing ahead with AI and at the leading in the leading pack, and there are going to be many that are just sitting by waiting to get on their bike. And for me, that would be the only real mistake, is standing still. Standing still when so much is changing around us and so much could really happen, that you want to be in control and know what's happening. I think some people and some teachers are going to be, fine by doing things the way that they've always done them. But I don't feel that's going to be the case for the majority. And I don't feel that's going to be where the real opportunity lies. Those that are able to learn and to lead through AI, who can help their schools and their students shift and make this shift really, really well, they're the ones that are going to be irreplaceable. They're the ones that are going to have the most employment opportunities. So my recommendation is really to lean into this change, but do it in a playful way. Keep playing with the technology, not just every few months, but constantly be using it, because then you know what's happening and what's coming down the line. Secondly, I would really encourage you to build your skills and really trying to be the most skilled AI empowered teacher you can be on the team. Because again, that makes you irreplaceable. And focus on being the teacher that can't be replaced by AI. And that means doing what you've said here, and I'll share those results. Being inspiring and motivating, being able to create trust, and guiding learning with empathy and insight. Because language teachers are totally essential to the future of language education. And I have every confidence that those of you who embrace this moment are going to be the ones that shape it too. So if you want to dive a bit deeper into AI and how it's impacting language education, you can download my free white paper. It's called LangTech in the AI Era. There's a QR code on the screen. You can also learn more on my blog, blog.learncube.com. But yeah, that white paper, AI in the AI Era, I think should be really a helpful resource for many of you, and also for the schools that you work with. So I'm going to stay on for questions, but I'll stop there.